and welcome everybody to this episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring tech leaders together to talk about all things tech, growing the companies and growing your career within our industry. Now, I'm really excited on this episode to have Mike Bell from Scheduler.AI, and he's going to be sharing some of his nuggets and his insights into growing a tech company from scratch, and also listening to the passions about what he has and the challenges he's had to deal with and get past. So, stick around to the very end, because I'm sure Mike's got a lot he can share with us. So without further ado, Mike, great to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and give us a snippet about who you are, where you came from, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Thanks, Gary. I really appreciate you bringing me here on Growth Focus. So I guess a little bit about my background. I was definitely not an entrepreneur out of the gate, right? I started my career in big companies at General Electric, at Nielsen, but did have a little bit of that classical entrepreneur story, right? Of like fell in love with a problem that I was experiencing. I'm sure we'll get into more of that, in the podcast. Couldn't let it go, and just, a series of pivots later, again, kind of a traditional first-time founder story, have gotten to here. But yeah, co-founder is my high school sweetheart and wife. We've done a number of things together, this being kind of the most recent venture we've been on. We actually hold patents in AI tech. We've been in this game longer than, ChatGPT has been around for sure. And really looking forward to just sharing a little bit more of the story and just having a conversation with you on here, Gary.
Brilliant. But yeah, I love the way, as I said, you're your co-founders, your childhood sweetheart, and it's always a wonderful thing to have a family business, but also it can be quite stressful as well, because your whole life is, both my wife and I, we both worked remotely. We both work from home. So we are in each other's pockets practically, especially when COVID hit, 24 hours a day. So, as much as we love each other, stressful situations can occur, but we survived it, which is great, just like you. So you mentioned that you didn't come from a tech industry background. You came from a completely different background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you started? And the roles you had, and then how you transitioned into where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Maddie and I were together high school. We ended up going to Duke together for college. I studied electrical and computer engineering. Actually, also wrestled for Duke, which was really an amazing experience. But that really meant you only got to do two things: compete in a D1 sport and go to class. A very focused college career. But from there, we moved to Cincinnati. I was recruited by General Electric to actually do jet engine software. So really interesting place to start a career, very niche industry. Jet engines are pretty wild to begin with, but they are very niche. So we actually had the opportunity to go out to Arkansas, to live in Northwest Arkansas for a few years. Maddie was with Procter & Gamble. They asked her to come out and work the Walmart account. And while I was there, I wanted to kind of, open up my world a little bit, and was recruited by Nielsen actually to come in and do data analytics for them. And that was an incredible place to really get deep into not just the engineering side, but the data side of the world. Because if you're a data scientist, that is like the greatest playground of data you could ever imagine, to come in and see like all the transaction data for all these retailers and manufacturers, right? And we were just building some really cool models, but not just the models, right? We were able to make it very practical, particularly for Walmart was my client at the time, expand our contract. And then that's when I really got the career opportunities. We had to hire very quickly, and was fortunate to be promoted, up into a director role, and then into a director up to a vice president role, leading data science for North America. So, I had just incredible exposure to all these retailers, all these manufacturers all over North America, a brilliant data science team to lead and to manage. I had an amazing big co job, right? And I guess it was right around COVID though. Maddie was she was a brand director at Procter & Gamble. I was vice president at Nielsen, and we had zero give in that, if that makes sense. So now all of a sudden you've got like no ability to have childcare, right? We had our first kid. You've got no flex in your schedules. Even the people you want to see, you're like struggling to find time with, and just everything kind of like came to a head right around, I guess it was like early 2021. Right? Like something had to give. And we had this kind of idea for what the time was called. It wasn't called Scheduler. It was called Get-Together.AI. And it was kind of born out of this, when we had come back from Arkansas, we'd see these good friends at church every Sunday and we'd say, we should get together. We should get together. And what was once like a pretty easy thing, right? Like, hey, none of us had kids. We had to, we could figure out stuff. None of us could figure it out. We never saw each other. And we were driving home from church one Sunday. Maddie was like, this is insane. I should be able to add something to a text message chain, say, find time for us to have, lunch or dinner or whatever. And it just happened. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Something's got to exist, right? There's got to be something out there already that can do this. And tried everything. Was that, doodle polls didn't work. I'm not sending someone a Calendly link to grab a beer, right? There was nothing that really worked here. So I just started tinkering off on the side, right? But like I said, there was zero time. 2 jobs with no give, the kid. And so I just sat Maddie down one morning, nice warm cup of coffee. And I was like, think I'm ready to go for it. And she was like, what have you done to validate this idea, right? And I'm sure, Gary, you talk with people about this all the time, right? What lives in your head versus what lives in reality. So that was when we kind of first started seeking initial checks. We actually applied to an accelerator. They called us back that day, said, hey, you're in, wrote the first little check. And that was kind of the start of the journey from big co into startup.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I say it's always a scary part when, especially when you're doing it with your spouse as well. You go, are you sure about this? But how safe can you be? But we all know as entrepreneurs, but if you waited for every green light to be green, you'll never get started.
100%.
It's absolutely, you say, right, I've done my tests, I've done my research, I've done what it is, and then the rest of it is gut. Then the rest of it is pure gut and say, look, it's down to me now. It's down for what I can put into it.
At some point, you got to put it into the world and let it react, right? And what we did find, right, was that initial idea. I think, a few things weren't ready. Consumers were not ready for the idea of AI and their text message threads. The sophistication of the technology was not there, right? We did everything in-house early on, right? And it could be, somewhat easily confused. The market wasn't there, even when we did, nothing that we thought was there was really there at the time. And, it was interesting when our third daughter was born in 2022, we had raised our pre-seed about 6 months before, our very first kind of small round. Hired on somebody and we were testing it. It was actually, she was my number 2 at Nielsen. She was a brilliant data scientist. She's still with us today. And it's just brilliant. And we were text message is really slow to test over and it's pretty expensive, right? Because you're paying for every message. So we got in Slack and we were it might be easier, cheaper, faster to just test all of this AI in Slack. So why don't we just take the brain, right? Lobotomize it and make it accessible via multiple channels. And we were oh, this is actually pretty good. This is actually pretty neat. And Slack was having a global hackathon at the same time. So I was you know what, I'll just pop it in here, see what it does. And then we won first place globally, right? Which was crazy. So we got this very nice check from Slack. They started promoting us and we were oh, this is it. It's communities on Slack and it's people working with their customers on Slack or Slack Connect. Because Salesforce had bought them, right? They were Slack Connect is the future. Email is dead. And we're we're riding this wave all the way. Newsflash, that was not still a commercially viable channel. It was neat, but we couldn't get, we couldn't get buy-in. There was no budget for it. There's no budget holder for faster internal scheduling in Slack. Newsflash. That's no one. Everybody was can you do this? It's so cool. It's all right, well, if it's that cool, are you willing to give me dollars for it? And they're no, but it should exist. And it's okay, well, these things take money to build and run. So that is not it. And then that's
for people who don't know what Scheduler is, Scheduler.AI.
Sure,
why don't you help us out with what is? I mean, I love it. I looked at it. I know what it is, and I know your story and how you got to it. But let's talk about Scheduler.AI. What is it? What does it actually do, and who does it serve?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we start with some fundamental principles, right? So before I even go into what it is we do, we started with some key insights, right? The number one is that when it comes to business, meetings are the atomic unit of business growth. Maybe not for PLG companies, right? But for sales-driven companies, meetings are the atomic unit of business growth. Credit Sam Jacobs. He said that and he was dead on it. But then the second insight we have is that meetings don't actually start with, they don't start with a calendar. They start with context and conversations. So you have this core driver of your growth, but it doesn't just start with like book time. It starts with why, right?
Mm.
When, who, how. And what we started to realize is, all right, if you are going to have a productive meeting that drives your company forward, you've got to have a few things, right? You have the right people engaged, right? So I'm thinking about sales people here, right? So we mostly serve sales teams and recruiting teams because you got to do a few things right. You got to engage the right people. Right? So multiple channels we on. You got to qualify them, right? Is this a good meeting for me and for you? Right? You got to route them to the right person. Okay, you are the right person externally, but who's the right person internally? You got to book that meeting. But then just because it's booked doesn't mean you get it, right? You got to remind it. You got to reschedule it. And then you know what you and I are doing right here, right? You want to record it, right? Because all the insights for the meeting are actually in the dialogue and the transcript. And then you got to keep it moving forward with good, timely follow up, booking the next meeting, et cetera. Right? So this engage, qualify, route, book, remind, schedule, record, follow up. It is a lot for any human to do. And so we've built AI agents that streamline that process end to end. And you'll notice one thing that I very intentionally did not say we do though, which is like actually try to sell, right? Like selling is human to human. Selling will remain human to human. People buy from people, right? Again, maybe PLG thing aside, right? But like in a sales driven motion, people buy from people. So we looked at the whole process and said, what is everything a human is doing that is not about focusing on another person, right? Deriving creative insights, helping move that forward. And then how do we build AI agents that kind of end to end can do those things as like an autopilot, right? Like as true agents. So we've kind of moved from this phase, right? Like AI has transitioned from this co-pilot phase of like, I prompt you and you do something neat to my workflows and you're actively moving things forward, right, without my direct guidance for every single step. So that's really what we're doing, right? It's like end to end, all the way from engage, qualify, route, book, reminder, schedule, record, follow up.
Yeah. You said that a few times, haven't you now, Mike?
It's become a lot. It's really become a platform, Gary. We used to be a point solution, right? Like, again, Copilot era. Add us to an email chain, tell us what you want to schedule, we'll follow. And it's neat. And we have people who still come in today. We have a self-serve plan. That's all it does. People who want to help them book meetings, they come on, they pay for it, and they're off on their merry way. But we have this, it really truly has become a platform for these more sophisticated sales and recruiting teams.
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic thing to do, and moving from and I want to segue into AI now actually, because you're the expert in AI, but almost every single interview I'm doing, whether it's an interview I do for the podcast, whether it's I'm talking to a client, whether I'm at a function, a tech function, without doubt AI comes up. No matter what it is, it always comes up, good, bad, and indifferent. Because it's not yet at the top of its pinnacle of its curve where it can actually show its power. 100%. And people like you are taking what there is of it and making the better use out of it from where it is. Sure. So that being said, you've managed to use AI to automate a process that humans would have done, but it would have taken them a lot longer to done, and probably with a few mistakes in there as well. Where do you see that future of AI, and what do we have to do to maintain being a master of it as opposed to it taking over?
It's a really good question. I have my idyllic version versus, where it might go. I would say in an ideal world, I think of it somewhat like the Industrial Revolution, where you had a lot of manufacturing line jobs that were displaced, but those were not actually elevating to human capabilities. You know what I mean? That was humans doing robotic tasks that should have been replaced. And my co-founder does she has this amazing speech that she does a lot of times when she keynotes these AI conferences. And she says, we really want to look at it as micro tasks that have a macro impact. Right? So these are things that have to be done on repeat correctly, day in and day out, but they go maybe beyond the capabilities of what I'd say traditional automation, right? Like UiPath, robotic. It's there's an elevated level of sophistication to make these things happen, which is why humans continue to do them instead of them being automated. But they aren't low value tasks. There's a difference, right? Low value tasks should be eliminated. Micro tasks should be automated, right? And if you do a lot of those micro tasks right every single day, you get macro impacts, right? And those are macro impacts that then allow people. So again, AI is not having this conversation and generating no ideas between us. This is a person to person thing, right? But everything it took in between, right, Gary, to like make it possible for you and I to meet, right, or to do any
Hmm.
follow-ups we need, or any sort of that side of things, like agents should be handled. Like we have kind of a saying internally: if you can write an SOP for it, a statement of procedure, an
Hmm.
AI agent should be able to handle it.
Hmm.
Anything that requires additional sophistication should go away. And it might mean we have shorter work weeks, right? It might mean that I, as a, whatever I'm doing, like that there are certain things that like I no longer have to do and I have a more fulfilling life. I think that's the like the winning way to do it.
Yes.
I think where a lot of the concern comes in is when you see strikes on things like art and creative, or even to bring it closer to the sales space, right? Like AI that's completely writing, emails with insights and hooks to people, that like that one can actually be done pretty well, right? But there's like a creative aspect to it. I think the rebellion is coming from the side of commerce that is inherently creative, because that is what makes us human,
Yes.
right? So
The
like,
authenticity part of it.
I'm sorry.
The authenticity part of it. The human
Yeah, the
authenticity.
authenticity. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it's dead on, right? Like at the end of the day, I don't care if I'm talking to an AI up to a point, right?
Hmm.
Like I really like, it's great if it gets me the answers faster, if it gets me to the end faster. Like that's fantastic, right? Like a lot of people just like, oh, do you want to come to a site and chat with AI? Yeah, if it's going to get me to the next place faster, right? But if I don't ultimately end up at a human and that's my goal and it's a human level conversation, that's what I think people, are really concerned with
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. No, and I tend to agree. I think, again, when you're speaking to the markets outside, you're speaking to other businesses outside, um, it's the misunderstanding of how to use AI from misinformation that really scares people for it. They're worried about, this will replace it. And, I've had plenty of conversation with other business leaders about how we can use AI, like you said, to do a majority of the marketing stuff. But when it comes to the sales stuff as itself, that's the human being, that's the human touch, to meet in person if we can, otherwise online. To look someone in the eye, to shake someone on the hand with a hand. That stuff is still very much needed for business growth in order to move forward, with all the tasks to get to that stage, like you said, being done by AI. So that being said, that's a really good segue to move to what do you think the competitive landscape looks like for someone like yourself coming into this? Like you said, you still don't know the field because you can't test everything. You don't know what the market is ready to pay for effectively or willing to use. What does the competitive landscape look like to you out there with lots and lots of AI companies coming in?
Yep. So I mean, I think you got to segment the AI companies who
Mm-hmm.
have foundational model builders, right? And those are going to continue to get better and better. It's almost like the cloud, right? Like being on the cloud is now an assumption. It's not like an inherent advantage,
Yeah.
right? That you're going to be able to do that. And so you're going to get to pick from these providers, right? And you'll have people on a team, right, that are very, we use all the foundational models, right? Because we know where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, where they have high latency, low latency. Like it's going to just be a core part of what you do to an extent, and you should be using all of the best, open source, closed source, like you have to have that very tight. But then comes like the application layer, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
the application layer is where we're going to see we'll see very few winners at the foundational model layer. It's just so expensive to build, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we were building some of our own for a while, and we were winning on our own use case up to about GPT 3.5, and then past that, it's just like this is not a cost effective thing for us to do, right? But then, and this is what we actually hold a patent on, right? Is what you actually do outside of that foundational model layer, what we call like an application or state management layer, right? And then that's how you take the full situational context and awareness about what you are trying to do and combine that with these foundational models to actually achieve a business or commercial objective. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna see I mean, look how many SaaS companies there are today, right? Like you're gonna see the same sort of like AI application layer explode. And so for us, the real advantage is one, we're anchored on a core competency that we are deeper and better in than anybody else. That is conversational AI scheduling. hold a patent in it. We think about it day in and day out, right? And we do it really, really, really well. Almost like, like Apollo. There are a ton of sequencers out there, but they have the data, right? It is like their anchor point. And so now you can go do a lot of these other things around it at, say, parity or better, right? But you have a core competency where you're better than anybody else in. And I do think, I think we've been in a world of SaaS point solutions for the last 5 to 10 years. I do think that we're going to see platform consolidation. So people who can bring good application level AI into a platform that allows you to get rid of one or two other things, right? Because budgets aren't getting bigger for stuff. They aren't getting bigger, right? People are being told to do more than less. Yeah. So for us, right, it's like core competency. Nobody else on the market is better than this. And it is critical for you to meet your business objectives. And oh, by the way, if you leverage us, you can get rid of these 2-3 other tools, right? I think I honestly believe that is why we are going to win in this space.
Yes. Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and I have no doubt that, having listened to you and known you for a while now, I have no doubt that goal of yours is going to be met by you, because you got that singular passion and focus of what you have. So I want you to think of an analogy of you standing on a ladder. You're standing on a ladder, you've gone halfway up the ladder, you're holding on, you can see where you want to go. Without falling off the ladder, Mike, I want you to just look down for a little bit. Can you share what one of the biggest challenges you had in getting to the stage you're at today? And what did you do to overcome that?
Gary, I caught you at the latter part, and then I think Hurricane Helene and everything that's happened in between us made it a little difficult. I know we're talking about a ladder.
Okay, so I'll start again. So you're standing on a ladder, you're looking up, you're halfway up the ladder to your success. You know exactly where the top of the ladder is. Could you share with us, just by looking down a little bit of the ladder, says, what was one of the biggest challenges you had to get to where you are on this ladder? And how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so many. I mean,
every run's an issue, right?
How many things. All right, so I'll just go with one as a technical co-founder, and that is finally becoming disabused of the notion that a great product will sell itself. Like, that is, I think, the singular biggest hurdle for a lot of especially technical founders to overcome is the idea that if the product is great, everyone will just know it and get on board with it. And yes, there's absolutely some product-led motion to what we do, no doubt. But actually becoming comfortable with the idea that if I believe this product is going to make people's lives better, getting on LinkedIn and talking about it where our audience is, right? Running a sales motion, right? Getting deep into that place and just saying, this product needs people behind it, pushing it. And a lot of what we've built, right? We've built almost as like metaware. Like stuff that we've just self-diagnosed, this is a problem for us and this should exist and we're just going to be making it happen. But I think that, when I look at the real turning point, now I will give, Dan Martell's SaaS Academy was a complete game changer for us, a complete game changer. It was when we finally, I had gotten on the sales call with somebody and I had a friend who listened in who was a professional salesperson. It was objectively horrible, right? Because I was just this technical co-founder. It was like, and then over here, you'll see this, and over here, you'll see this, right? And then if you look up here and there's feature X, Y, Z. And it was just like, oh, but so then after that, we got a coach, right? And we pay a lot for this coach, but it has been the single highest ROI thing we have done is to hire a coach who can teach us the skills that we did not have, right? In a big company, yeah, sure. I was brought in to help close deals when they basically already closed as the head data scientist guy, but I was not selling this. So it was really just finally taking seriously this idea of look, the product will only take you so far on your journey. You have to get in the game. Have to start promoting it, right? You have to find partners. The commercial side is just as, if not harder, more important than the product side, right? And that's very hard for a first-time founder, especially a technical one, to just finally come to that realization. Again, that was Maddie, right? That was my co-founder, who's probably like, Mike, she said to me, you will not build your way out of this problem. I still remember sitting there, she said, you will not build your way out of this growth problem. I was like, damn it, she's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is such a big insight. And I've just got to thank you for sharing that bit, because especially in tech, it's their baby. They've spent their time doing it. It's come from inside them, their brain, and they've got it outside. And then it's the tinkering and the making it better. But it doesn't matter. You could be if you keep just doing that, you become the best kept secret. And if you're the best kept secret, you're doing the world an injustice. You really are doing the world an injustice.
If you are the best kept secret, you lose to the next best promoter. You know what I mean?
Exactly right.
Like you lose, and that's a tragedy for the world. So get out there and promote it, and
Yeah.
believe
Yeah,
in it.
that is just so important. And again, I'm just going to take that little bit of nugget you just shared there. You could be the best if you are the best kept secret. You're doing injustice to the world. The product that gets sold may not be any better than yours. It may even be worse than yours. But because they can out promote you, people will end up buying it. And then it's even worse because they're not getting the true value of what you can bring to the world, and that's so. Yes, you got to get it out of your head. You've got to get it to the marketplace, and any company needs to have. You can do all your POCs as much as you like, but until you've got someone paying for it and utilizing it and bringing revenue in, you're not going to get anywhere. Like Maddie says, you cannot build yourself out of that problem. It's got to be focused on the sales side, 100%. So that's a really nice little segue. I can't believe we've been talking again now for nearly half an hour. It had such great fun. What is it? You're very focused on what you're doing. You and Maddie, the company is going from strength to strength. What does success look like to you in 12 to 24 months' time? What is the company going to look like? What's the goal, the focus, and how would you know you've hit that success pot?
I think you grow from one problem into another problem, right? And now that we've been fortunate to start to crack the early sales cycle, the next kind of leg of growth that we're on right now, and I was telling you right before the call, Gary, right? It's like we're struggling to onboard people fast enough, right? And what we're realizing is there's only two ways we're going to get out of that problem, right? Or a few. We've got to either educate our clients better so they can do a lot of it themselves, or more likely we're going to need partners who we play with in the space, right? So if in the next 12 months, I have 4 or 5 great strategic partners who work close with the clients with me, who can kind of like take this and go. So, agencies who set up outbound, who do inbound marketing, right? Who we can become a part of their advantage as partners, right? Where they actually look to us and they say, hey, for us to do this implementation for you and hit your goals, we've got to bring in Scheduler.AI, and it'll look like them, right? Be like, that becomes our platform becoming a core part of their success is my guess, right? I could be totally wrong. It's 12 to 24 months, right? But that is our next pain that we've grown into is how do we actually go from, so again, I'll go to SaaS Academy, right? They talk about KPI 1, 2, and 3. KPI 1, can you get the meeting? KPI 2, can you close the deal? KPI 3, can you get them to value, right? So we're doing KPIs 1 and 2 well. KPI 3 of how do we speed up the time to value for the end user and recipient of the benefit? That is our number one core focus over the next 12 months.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely an avenue which is very much underutilized. Is using strategic partners together because there's only so much of a market you can hit by yourself. But by using strategic partners out there, that could utilize it, whether that be licensing, whether that be white labeling, whichever way falls right for you, but utilizing partners who already have active users, who already have people who love them and will buy most of the stuff they have. So getting those right IPPs, I do partner profiles, I'll do partner programs together. It will really help that company grow. And I think that's a really good focus, not just for you, but for anyone who's thinking about doing tremendous growth over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. So that being said then, Mike, how easy is it? How easy is it, do you think, when you get to that point when you go, it's time to let go, it's time to do you have exit plans? Is it something you intend to keep on holding? Sure. What is it?
Everyone's got a number, we know what ours is.
Yeah.
Maddie and I are, we're fortunate that our early employees have equity, that we have retained the majority of the equity through the funding round. So we've got a number. We got 3 young kids. We got 3 girls, 6, 4, and 2. Somebody comes along and gives me a current number today, I'm not missing any of their childhood. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But what I can say, is like most companies right now, even venture-backed ones, right? We have Drive Capital as our main backers. They are phenomenal. I love working with Drive. Right? They have been a wonderful partner to us. We also have 11 tribes in Chicago, who I think, from a faith background, we're very aligned with. But, it's interesting, right? Maddie and I have talked about this. This is an idea that if executed perfectly over a long time horizon, you could IPO this company for a
Mm-hmm.
few different reasons, right? Like you could. Do I think that will happen? No. I think in the next 2 to 5 years, you are going to see a series of very nice offers. We're even starting to see it, right? For companies that have nailed AI for their verticals. They have
Mm-hmm.
good, strong product adoption. They have a clear advantage with some IP around it that makes it hard to replicate. And there will be acquisition offers in that space. So who knows, if Mark Benioff is out there listening, right, and he wants to take these Salesforce agents up, even another notch. I'm here.
Yeah.
Dharmesh Shah, if you're tuning in, I'm here. We definitely have, you have those dream exits where you build those relationships as early as you can. But I mean, like, look, it is true, right? Like if you are focused on that and not just delighting your client, if you're more focused on that than delighting your clients, you're not going to get to it versus like, if you're focused on,
Well, that's a really good point, Mike, because my co-partner, when we sold our business, like you said, we had a vision, we had a goal, we had a 5-year vision. That number came in year 3. It was, it was great for us. But
amazing.
The caveat was she was so focused on our clients that it was important that the person who bought us, the company that bought us, had the same values
Totally.
to look after our clients. It was just one, especially because she's got a 1-year workout. So it was definitely important that they shared the same values. There wasn't a clash in that 12-month workout, that the customers were looked after, the clients were looked after, and it was an ongoing relationship. And to be fair, the buyout partner wants longevity anyway. So actually, it's a pretty good way to mix that sale, because they want longevity. That's what they're buying it. They want the longevity of it. Why have the clash at the beginning? Let's make sure that we're on the same path.
Good for you, Gary. I mean, I will definitely say this journey has made me much more of a fan and cheerleader of people, who've been able to like you, get to their perfect exit. Because it is so hard.
Yeah.
It is so hard. It is so brutal. And there's no guarantee of success, right? I mean, you go to a big company, right? You do a good job, you keep your head down, you promote yourself, but within reason, right? You're gonna eventually most likely see growth. Not in all cases, right? But there is a level of predictability to it. In startup land, there is no guarantee of any sort, right? So, I always love hearing, from you and other entrepreneurs who were able to get there, right? Because once you've done it, you just appreciate just how much harder it is than, not just harder like in terms of hours and things like that, but just mentally, right? Just mentally, like, when you're working for a G or a Nielsen or a P&G like we did first, you don't wake up and worry if the company is going to be there tomorrow. But like if we give up, it dies, right? It is like that. It's just like you leave, company dies, right?
Yeah.
You're like, so there's just that level of like, again, even beyond just the amount of work you're going to inevitably do as an entrepreneur, just that weight. And you need a community for that, right? We've been fortunate to find a great community here who really gets it. But I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, right, who are very alone in this journey, and you don't want to be there, right? So if you're listening to this, just like find like at least one other person at a similar, little further level or whatever, and just be like, all right, we're gonna like have each other to vent on, because this is brutal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're absolutely true and absolutely right. It does get lonely, even if you've got a partner, co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
It does get lonely. You just feel you're running your own race. And I know there's lots of people out there go, run your own race, don't worry about anyone else. But the challenge of running your own race is it's lonely. And you just don't know if you're actually going to get to the end. You wish, you hope that you've got enough energy to get to where you want to get to. But you got to keep on going. You can't suddenly say, I'm sick today, I don't want it. I've had enough. You can't do that, within reason. But, it is vitally important. I love what you said there. Get somebody, go and meet someone who's on the similar path to you, that can just share something with you. It's different sharing it with your co-founder than is sharing it with a stranger. It really 100%. Is.
Totally
and I love that. So that being said, Mike, as we draw end to our time together, I can't believe, as I said, it's gone so quickly. A bit of a loaded question for you. You're going through the mill, as I said, you're climbing that ladder. You're focused, on the rungs ahead of you, making sure you're not misstepping and not slipping down. And all too often in business, we climb up 2 and slip a little bit and climb up some more. For those who are listening, and as I said, you've just given some great insights for people who are out there on their own saying, yeah, we can get there. What nugget could you share with someone today to keep someone focused, keep someone aimed solely on their goal to achieve success? What kind of can you share with us?
Man, you know what? I mean, I'll tell you what I do, which is like, we know, I mean, picking like, there's a book, right, called One Thing, right? The One Thing. And it is about like that next thing, and everything else should support it, right? So for us, it's currently a commercial goal. We have a revenue target that we're trying to hit. And so it is like literally looking at it like first thing in the morning when we wake up, once midday, and once kind of at the end of the day, to be like, did we move closer to that target? Did all the activity that I do today in one way or another tie us that, right? Because it is so easy to get distracted with being productive, and you lose target. Just like, what's going to keep this company from dying, right? Because it's almost like when you're a startup, it's not even so much of like, what will make us X more successful next year, right? It's like, what will keep us from dying tomorrow, right? And like somebody did a great time one time, and they said, and this is actually what got us focused, because previously, right, it was things like AI quality, right? And we had to really work on that. And they said, you're sitting around a fire with your buddies, and you're talking 5 years down the road of like, why did that venture not work out for you guys, right? And you had to give the one reason that it didn't work out. That's the one thing that you should be working on right now. You already know what it is. If I put you in that setting and you're reminiscing on it, you can tell me this is why the company didn't make it. Don't get to that point. Turn around and start working on it now. So you're not that guy sitting at the fire, 5 years from now with like, this is why it didn't work out, and you knew it and you didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I think that is a great analogy to look at, and a great piece of advice, to share with that and to leave us on. And so, Mike, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today. How can people get hold of you? They want to know more about you, more about Scheduler.AI. What's the best way of getting hold of you?
Yep, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Not hard to find. Mike Bell, Scheduler.AI. You can also just check us out. Again, not hard to find. Scheduler.ai, right? Like that's us. You can come on, have a chat with our AI agents. If you're a sales or recruiting leader, we would love to speak with you about what we do. If you're just coming in, you just want to, an AI scheduling assistant, that's fine too. We've got self-serve plans, but yeah, super active out on LinkedIn. Love to have conversations with people there. And, Gary, thanks for just kind of opening up this platform and this floor for everything you're doing to founders telling their story.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, Mike, thank you very much for your time today, for your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, again, Mike has left some great advice there, some great nuggets from there. If you have found even something that he said today important to you, or something that you could use, make sure you do one or four or all four, which is make sure you like, you comment, you share, and you subscribe. And let's get messages out there and expertise out there so a whole industry can start thriving in a way where, so we're not as lonely as the people we've talked about before, so we can rise those ships. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Mike, for your time. And until the next episode, goodbye and all the very best to you. Bye-bye.